What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and we made it to episode 6 of season 1 for HBO's The Last of Us. Finally got these episodes back to back done for you guys. I apologize again for lagging on it. Had so much I had to do with the channel, and unfortunately The Last of Us took a little bit of a hit, but I got the videos out and now we are on episode 6. Now with that being said, guys, before we get into episode 6, I'm only going to ask two things. Of course, you guys already know. I'm going to ask you to like the video so that it helps spread it out to the YouTube algorithm, and not only that, help us fight the YouTube algorithm by consider giving this video a long view duration. That way the YouTube algorithm knows you guys are enjoying it. With that being said, let's get into episode 6 from season 1 of The Last of Us. Alright guys, so this episode starts off exactly where the last one left off, which is with Henry unfortunately offing himself because he had to kill his brother Sam, because his brother Sam got infected in the scuffle against the resistance fighters. And yeah, the whole thing is just very emotional, and obviously it's meant to set a tone. But this particular episode gives us a 3-month time jump, so it jumped 3 months ahead of what happened with Henry and Sam. It's a big time jump, and now we see a scene where it's in a little bit of a snowfield, as there's a log cabin that's approached by a man that everybody thinks is Joel, and then all of a sudden you realize it's actually not Joel. It is an older gentleman who went out hunting, who has lived out in these woods even before the whole infection broke out. Him and his wife look extremely comfortable. She looks extremely comfortable considering the situation of the world that's going on right now. She looks very comfortable, but yeah, she is actually being held up by Joel and Ellie. Joel actually has a gun pointed out towards the guy, who is told to take out his gun and put it down on the table. The man is making jokes about how his wife made the gentleman soup, and none of them seem to be any sort of scared over Joel presenting the weapon, because I guess they must have been through this before. Or maybe they feel like they have nothing to lose. Either or, it doesn't really matter. Ellie ends up coming out extremely rude against the old man. Check it out.
What did I just say?
Joel, come on, there's like 1,000.
Who's this little psycho? Never mind her.
Ellie says not to worry about it because they're extremely old and there's nothing they can really do. Joel wants to know exactly where they are because they might be a little bit lost. They have a map, but they're not really doing much with it. The old man asks, why do you have a map if you're lost? And then Joel says that you better tell us where we are, and you better have the same answer as your wife so that I know that you're not lying. The old man asks his wife if she told him the truth, and she says yes, she told him the truth. So then he himself tells them the truth as well, and then when Joel sees the answer, it pretty much confirms that both of them are telling the truth and that they're not lying. Joel ends up asking what the hell are they doing out here, and then he ends up telling them that they have been out there for many years. Even before the infection spread, they always lived out in the wilderness because they didn't want to be around people and get the hell away from everybody. Which honestly, at this point in time, is probably a great idea. Then they end up discussing how they don't know anything about the fireflies, they don't know anything about what's going on really in the world. They're completely secluded. All they know is the fact that there are people killing other people and infected across the river, where Joel asks what's going on this side of town. They say do not go in that area because there's people killing other people and infected in that area. But Joel says they're going to have to end up going in that direction anyway. The old man laughs, and then Joel and Ellie end up leaving, and Ellie says you don't seriously take them seriously about what they're saying, and then he says they lived a long time here, that, you know, there's no reason for them to be lying about what they're experiencing. Ellie ends up stealing the 3 bunnies that the guy ended up killing, and then Joel seemingly has an anxiety attack. Check it out.
Joel, are you okay? Joel?
Shut up.
Holy shit, are you dying?
So he's obviously having a bit of a panic attack or an anxiety attack, and Ellie has no idea what it looks like because, again, she hasn't really grown up prior to the infection, so she really didn't see many diagnoses, I would imagine, of different illnesses or different situations like an anxiety attack. So they end up going into the woods and continuing onward. You get some beautiful scenery showcasing how amazing the world looks now that nature has basically taken it back over, which is a running theme that happens in The Last of Us. They end up setting up camp where him and Ellie have a little bit of a discussion, and as they continue to bond. That's the whole point of the episodes as it goes onward. Ellie and Joel continue to bond, and that's going to be the reason, or that's going to be the premise of this entire episode. That's why it's called Kin. Ellie ends up asking a question to Joel, what would he do if everything was normal? And he says he would end up being a sheep kind of farmer. And she ends up saying she would love to go to the moon and be an astronaut, and ends up naming a bunch of astronauts that are only female. And then the morning hits, and then they both wake up, where Ellie says that she kept watch with a sniper rifle. Check this out.
Kept watch. Like you taught me to. What can I say, man? I'm a natural.
So she's starting to listen and understand to what Joel is teaching her, even if it makes Joel a little bit unhappy. Then you get a scene of them crossing a bridge in a snowy field. Obviously, it's extremely cold, so they're trying to get through here quickly. And then as they go through the field, they notice something, that there is a dam nearby, where Ellie asks him, do you know how it works? He says, don't even bother asking me. I have no idea how it works. But at one point, it produced electricity, because it's obviously hydropower. Then as they go forward, all of a sudden, they get ransacked by a bunch of men and women on horses, and they're held up by these men and women, and they're obviously interrogated. What are you doing here? How did you get here? Where are you going? Kind of a thing. And they have a dog with them, and that particular dog can actually sense infection inside of a person. So they say that there's going to be no need for conversation, but first we're going to introduce you to the dog, and if you are infected, it will eat you alive. The dog ends up going to Joel, and this happens. Obviously, Joel is not infected, and he's not the one that people need to worry about. They end up targeting Ellie, and that's where Joel ends up getting very, very nervous and starts to have another anxiety attack. This is also a combination of Joel realizing that he's having, strong feelings for Ellie, in the sense that he wants to protect her as a daughter, and she's not necessarily cargo anymore. That he actually enjoys having her around, and he's getting a second opportunity at being a father. This is something that's happened throughout The Last of Us. Obviously, if you played the game, you guys would know that. But even if you didn't play the game, you start to see it more and more and more as the episodes go forward. So you have a big tense moment where the dog is smelling Ellie and starts to growl, but then eventually the dog does not bite Ellie and ends up wanting to show Ellie some love, which makes Joel calm down, because now he realizes Ellie's fine and her infection will not be discovered. Then this woman ends up coming up and says, who are you? What are you doing here? And he says he's looking for his brother. She walks forward and asks him what the brother's name is, and then it flashes out. You don't see exactly what happens, and then we get to a town that is extremely developed. Going into this town, Joel ends up walking in and realizing that, I'm assuming this happened off camera, that he was told that his brother Tommy is in this town, and there he is right there, both of them looking at each other, completely shocked, unable to believe that they're both alive, for that matter. They embrace, and then they have a little bit of a discussion inside of the hall where this happens. Check it out.
What?
What's wrong with you?
What about her manners?
She was just curious.
So that little scene where she ends up yelling at that girl and asking her what, a lot of people are theorizing that that girl that she yelled at is going to be Dina. Obviously Ellie's love interest throughout the entire game. I don't know if that's necessarily true yet. I haven't seen any credits or anything like that would showcase that this girl is Dina, but it's 100% possible. You never know, honestly, with this show. Now, one of the big things a lot of people have a problem with, and of course it is lazy as shit every time they do this. Forget the fact, because Pedro Pascal is obviously not Joel in the sense of his race, right? Neither is Tommy. Tommy is a hardcore white dude in the game, and he is not so in the TV show. So was anybody shocked over the fact that they race swapped Tommy's wife? Nobody should be shocked, okay? I saw this coming a mile away. I knew they were going to do it to somebody in this episode. It was only a matter of time. And of course, they made Tommy's wife super black because diversity. They need to make sure they show everything on screen they possibly can to check off as many boxes as they can. Is it lazy? 100%. Does it super affect the story to the point where nobody even wants to watch it anymore? For me, not so much. I just look at it as an annoyance. It's like, okay, you really didn't have to do that. You obviously chose to do that. You didn't have to do it. And it doesn't do anything, it doesn't do anybody any justice on the minority side of things. But of course, you're going to want to do it because it's Hollywood. It is what it is. So we fast forward and they realize that Tommy and this woman are actually together. They didn't realize it at first until they hold hands and they kind of embrace. And then Joel and Ellie end up walking outside to wander the city to explore and realize how advanced the city is. Tommy and his wife end up talking about what the city offers, how it has its own electricity from the hydro plant, has its own food, its own shelter, everything. It's like how it was before the infection spread. But now the funny thing is they actually ended up mentioning how they're trying to celebrate communism apparently in this show. And that's a thing that a lot of people had problems with too. They try to make communism look like this fantastic thing that everybody should embrace because it works so well. And communism is so amazing. I really thought this part of the show was super cringe. Check it out.
Greenhouses, livestock, all shared. Collective ownership.
So, communism.
Nah, it ain't like that.
It is that, literally. This is a commune. We're communists.
So Tommy doesn't like the idea of it being called, communism, but obviously his wife disagrees because she is a Marxist and her race needs to represent that. I mean, listen, this is what BLM is, right? BLM is a Marxist organization. We know that 100%, not to bring politics into it, but it's not shocking that they made the black woman obviously a shill for communism. It's not shocking in the slightest, but of course, that's what they're doing. So in this TV show, this settlement is considered a communist settlement and everything's perfect. They enjoy it. Communism works great. And that's what it is. So Maria ends up telling Ellie come with her because she's gonna obviously get have her take a shower, get into some new clothes, get comfortable in the town, where Joel and Tommy end up wanting to catch up. So they go to the bar and they start discussing life and what happened when they were gone. Tommy ends up asking how Tess is, and Joel lies to him and says Tess is fine, that she's alive. Then he ends up asking about Ellie, and he ends up explaining that Ellie is cargo and that he's trying to get her to the Fireflies. Then they end up saying that the Fireflies have a base at the University of Eastern Colorado, which is their destination, where Tommy said that's about a week's ride south. Check this out.
Which is a bunch of bullshit, by the way.
Yeah, I can't go.
Oh, come on. I made it across the country. The two of us can make it from here to Colorado.
So Joel ends up thinking that Tommy's going to go with him to escort Ellie, but Tommy's about to reveal to him that Maria is actually pregnant, and that he's a family man now, and that he cannot go with him. Joel ends up asking if she was the one that got him off the radio and got him to ignore Joel in the first place, which you end up finding out that that was the case. Maria thought that Joel was not good for Tommy, not good for his situation, and ended up trying to cut ties between both of them. Joel is obviously pissed off about that and saying that you can't judge me for things that I've done or that we have done in the past, and Tommy says that they weren't things. Check it out.
We murdered people, and I don't judge you for it. We survived the only way we knew how. But there were other ways. We just weren't any good at them.
So it's a bit of a pity party where he kind of wants to forget his past and move on and kind of raise a family and go from there. And then they have a last minute kind of scuffle in words. Check this out.
To be honest, I'm scared to death. But I don't know why. I feel like I'd be a good dad.
Guess we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out.
So Tommy didn't like what Joel had to say. He ends up getting extremely pissed at him and says something to hurt him. And he ends up mentioning Sarah and saying that just because Joel's life stopped at Sarah doesn't mean that Tommy's life had to stop with it. And Joel, of course, took extreme offense to that, ends up walking out and says by morning they're going to leave and he doesn't have to worry about them anymore. As he goes outside, he sees a girl that looks like Sarah from behind, and even for a split moment, he truly believes that that is Sarah and that Sarah had her own child and then life went on. Because you got to remember, Sarah died 20 years ago, at least in this timeline, or maybe even close to 21 at this point, even though only a few months passed, maybe 20 and a half, something along those lines. But still, she died almost 20 years ago, so at this point in time, she would have probably had a kid, she would have been an adult, and she would have had her own family. So yeah, it doesn't shock me that Joel, at some point in time, just even for a split second, thought that he saw Sarah and just believed that she was around with her own family. Then we fast forward and Ellie has this very, very, very awkward period cup scene where they're showcasing again that she gets periods. I don't know why they've decided to want to show this twice. Because they showed tampons and stuff in an episode prior, and now they're showing again a period cup. It's very weird. We get it. She menstruates. Like, we understand. You know what I mean? But of course, they want to continue to remind you, and I'm not really sure why that is. Then she ends up going into a house where she ends up seeing Maria, who ends up asking Ellie if she wants a haircut, and Ellie says yes, and then they end up giving her a haircut, and they talk a little bit about Joel, and they talk about Tommy, and then Ellie actually ends up defending Joel against Maria, who obviously thinks Joel is a bad influence. Check it out.
Look, I'm not going to ask you what you're doing with him.
Good.
But there are clearly things you don't know about Joel.
Oh, like how he used to kill people? I know about that.
So then you understand my concern.
So I don't know if Maria thinks that Tommy didn't kill people and it was just Joel. I guess she probably does. But that's what they're implying. They're implying that Joel was basically the one who took the blame for everything, and she thinks Tommy is innocent or is trying to take Tommy away from Joel, one of the two. Maria then says that Ellie would have made one hell of a lawyer, and she tells her to be careful of who she puts her faith in, and that to leave with her, they're going to go see a movie with all the kids. So the kids are all together inside of the main building watching a movie. It seems like something that's cool, and it's nice to experience something of old, you know? So they have old school movies that they're playing on a projector, where Ellie ends up seeing Tommy leave the building to go talk to Joel. So Joel is trying to work on his boots that are very, very, very old and run down, and he's trying to repair them, but he's obviously feeling defeated. Tommy ends up showing up inside with brand new boots, which shocks Joel because he can't believe he sees brand new boots, because brand new anything in a post-apocalyptic world just seems strange. But he gets brand new boots where somebody crafted, and Tommy gives it to him, which Tommy ends up apologizing for what he said to Joel. And then they end up sharing a bit of a moment where Joel explains to Tommy that this girl is immune. Check it out.
She's immune.
What?
Ellie. She got infected, but she didn't get sick. Tommy. I saw her get bit myself. That was months ago. Months. She's in.
Now, before we get into this next part, I want to make something very clear. This next part is going to explain exactly what I've been saying about the entire TV series so far, okay? Episode 3 has served no purpose for the story. I've said this multiple times, and people try to tell me all the time, oh, but it has to do with the fact that if it wasn't for Bill and Frank, Joel wouldn't have gotten that final vindication he needed to go protect Ellie and take her on her journey. And I'm calling bullshit because the entire reason for Tess's sacrifice was exactly that. Joel was respecting Tess's final dying wish to go protect Ellie and take her on her journey, and Tess made Joel realize that Ellie was 100% immune, finally made him believe it, and it was at that point he got all the vindication, all the energy that he needed to take Ellie on the journey and see it through. He didn't need Bill and Frank to do so. The way they presented Bill and Frank's story was useless. It was pointless. All you gave us was a big gay wedding, and that is it. And I don't give a shit that these characters are gay because they were gay in the game, but you just made it useless. You made their entire story useless. They only got mentioned once, very quickly for 5 seconds in the last episode, and that's it. They haven't served any purpose. I could have went from episode 2 to 4 and nothing would have happened. And now we're going to get the final explanation for that, because in this next scene, Joel explains how Tess is the reason why he went to go finally take Ellie on her journey. Check it out.
It was Marlene. She hired us to smuggle her to some fireflies. It went bad. Tess got bit. She made me swear to take the kid. It was her dying wish. What the hell was I supposed to do?
So again, you realize that it was Tess's dying wish, which meant a lot to Joel. He didn't have anything else he could have done. He decided to see it through, not only just for her, but eventually he ends up talking about the fact that he wants to protect Ellie, that he's getting close to Ellie, and he's realizing this, and he cannot afford to lose her like he lost Tess and Sarah. It's getting to him. It's eating him alive, which is exactly why he's having all these anxiety attacks. And Ellie ends up overhearing the bit about this whole interaction, and he ends up saying that he wants Tommy to take Ellie from him and see her on her journey and try to separate them because he cannot afford to fail yet again. He thinks he's going to fail. It's a very emotional scene, but it's good. It's a good scene, and it's exactly what Joel would say. And it's exactly what happened in the game. Check this out.
Lately, there are these moments where the fear comes up out of nowhere, and my heart, it feels like it stopped.
It's a good scene, man. Pedro Pascal did a great job with Joel in this particular episode. I mean, he's been doing a good job overall, but still, he did a great job in this one, and he really nailed it. And they nailed their lines, too. There's lines from the game that are thrown into this particular TV show that you're going to see later on. So he ends up begging and begging and begging Tommy to take her, and of course, Tommy's going to end up agreeing to take her. But Ellie overheard every single thing that he said. Tommy ends up showing how to get out from the town in the next morning, and then they end up going their separate ways. Joel ends up going to Ellie's room, and when Joel goes to the room, we have this entire interaction where Ellie already knows what Joel said. Check this out.
You know, I stood up for you today because I thought...
I made this decision for your own good.
A lot of this comes from the game itself. She ends up bringing up Sarah, which of course you guys already know is going to get to Joel. And he says, do not say another word. And of course she's going to keep going and remind him that she's sorry about his daughter, but that she is not her. And then you have this emotional scene that comes almost directly from the game. Check it out.
Everybody I have cared for has either died or left me. Everybody fucking except for you! So don't tell me that I'd be safe with somebody else, because the truth is, I would just be more scared.
So obviously, super powerful scene directly from the game, almost line by line. And then you get the infamous scene towards the end that was said by Joel in the game as well, where he says that you are right. Check this out.
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad. Now come dawn, we're going our separate ways.
Strong scene, very powerful. The only difference is in the game, she ends up running away, and then Joel and Tommy have to chase her down and try to get her back. That doesn't quite happen in this TV show. She doesn't run away at all. The interaction just happens in the actual room that she was in, and that was it. Joel ends up thinking about decorating a Christmas tree with his daughter Sarah, is kind of having like flashback memories. And then we have the next morning where Ellie is getting ready to be walked by Tommy to go on their mission, and she's no longer going to go with Joel. When Tommy and Ellie end up going to the stables to get on a horse, they find Joel is there stealing a horse already. And then this happens. Check it out.
You deserve a choice. I still think you'd be better off with Tommy.
Let's go.
Okay.
Joel says that you deserve a choice, of which Ellie obviously is going to decide she wants to go with Joel. It's not even close. And you know what? Joel already knew that as well, and he wanted to present the illusion of choice. But let's be real, Joel wanted Ellie to be with him, and he knows that. She knows that. And it was just one of those things where they've come to an agreement that they're going to look after each other, and they're going to be together throughout this entire thing all the way to the end. So they end up going on a horse and leaving. Tommy ends up saying that it shouldn't be too hard to get there. They say goodbye, the gates close, and they are going on their way. Joel ends up trying to teach Ellie how to shoot a sniper rifle, but she fails miserably and blames the rifle, which he actually hits the target in one shot very easily. Then we get a scene of them riding on the horse, and they arrive finally to the university. Now, when they arrive, everything looks very barren, very empty, and they don't really know exactly what's going on. Joel ends up telling Ellie to pull out her gun and be on the ready because it doesn't look very good as to what's happening. When they get to the actual building of science, they see a Firefly logo, which tells them that that's where they're supposed to be, and they go inside and they see a bunch of monkeys all around the place, which they assume were let out from the last science lab that was available there. When they go inside the building, they realize all the monkeys are kind of going crazy. They escape the building, but then they end up seeing that raiders have showed up to that building, and I don't know if they were necessarily there already and they own the building now, or that they just happened to show up at the same time Joel and Ellie are there, but obviously we have a little bit of a thing where they try to escape. As they're trying to escape, a guy ends up showing up with a bat right behind Joel and tries to take a swing at him. Joel ends up fighting the guy and becomes old school angry Joel and snaps the guy's neck right in front of Ellie, but the only problem is he was stabbed with a piece of the bat. Joel's obviously bleeding out. They try to make an escape, which they do end up escaping, but he's bleeding out so much that he ends up collapsing onto the ground, which Ellie freaks out and says she can't do this without him, and then the episode zooms out and it ends from there. So the episode was pretty good, guys. I enjoyed this episode in particular only because it showed the emotion that Pedro Pascal was capable of doing with Joel. I thought it was very good. I would like to see more of this from Pedro, but overall, there was just a couple of things in here that really soured me. The whole laziness with the race swapping of Maria, I just feel like was just so pointless. The whole race swapping of all the fucking characters, honestly, is pointless, but at the end of the day, we gotta just realize that this is what Neil Cuckman is gonna do with his characters. He did it with Joel, he did it with Sarah, he did it with Tommy. What makes you think he's not going to do it with Maria, right? So at the end of the day, the story was great. It was presented very well, and I thought it was very accurate towards the game. My only other thing, too, is that the township is not that developed in the game at the time that Joel and Ellie first arrive, but apparently in the TV show, it's super developed, probably almost 3 times the size of the one in the game, so it looks like a major township. So that's the only difference I would really say, too. Obviously, there's a couple of other little things here and there, but overall, the episode was really solid for what it is from HBO Max, and I'm going to give this particular episode for The Last of Us a solid 7.5 out of 10. I think that's a great score for this particular episode. The wokeness aspect of it was a little bit stupid for me, honestly. Like, I just feel like it's so lazy. Like, why? Like, you cannot tell me you couldn't find an actress that looked like the game character, just like you can't tell me you couldn't find one that looked like Joel, whatever the case may be. But still, they're going to do what they're going to do. I don't like the fact that they left out key important scene of Joel and Tommy chasing after Ellie. I felt like that could have been a really good scene to incorporate into the TV show. But overall, it's shot very well. It's acted very well. The sets look very nice. And I'm curious to see how they're going to do the scene where Ellie has to go save Joel now. We all know that scene from the game. I'm very curious to see how they're going to pull it off. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.